Hi there, I'm Lisa. I've been vegan for 3 years. My particular areas of interest are around ethics, philosophy, the sort of philosophy behind why people are vegan. So.
I'm Julie. I'm a nutritionist. That's my particular interest. I've been vegetarian and then vegan for 30 odd years, long time. And I work in a private practice with nutrition.
Hello, I'm Jack. I've been vegan 18 months now, I think, or somewhere around there. And my kind of interest is in sort of science and evolutionary biology, and also sort of the ethics and philosophy around veganism.
Hi, Jason, ex-bodybuilder, nutrition and things like that, sports, boxing, so that's about it.
My name's Edward Daniel, and I'm a practicing solicitor. I work in the city, and I work for OK Express and Star Magazine. And I've been vegan about 6 years, and I became vegan because of spiritual reasons. And I woke up one day and thinking, what am I doing? Why am I holding a slab of meat in the palm of my hand? I was looking at it and thinking, God, this is making me feel really uncomfortable. And it's my moment of awakening, and I thought, actually, I participate in the harm and suffering of this animal. And since then, I've been vegan. And so for me, I've had this journey, epic journey, where within 2 years, I became the chair of the Vegan Society. And I was chair for a year, and then for the last 2 years, I've been doing advocacy and going around and speaking at various festivals. And I'm speaking at the Good Life Experience, Port Elliot this year, in Berlin, and Vegan Life Live, and here as well this weekend. So I'm just here because I was asked to do a talk, so and also to be on this panel. So that's why I'm here with you now.
So we need someone brave enough to ask the first question.
Don't ask me.
I can't see any hands in the air. Yes!
Hi. It took me a long time to become a vegetarian because I couldn't work out where the boundary lay between animals and plants. I'm gradually becoming a vegan. I'm still puzzled. If I think this through, I end up wanting to just sit in the corner of a field and breathe prana until I fade away, because everything I do causes harm and grief to life somewhere, somehow. Any comments?
Yeah, just a bit of clarity. So you're sort of thinking about the, if you're causing harm to individual animals, do you think there's parallels in plants that if you feel like you're causing harm to plants as well? Is that your worry?
Where does an individual animal then become and a plant separate? Because there is evidence that plants feel pain. If I cut down a tree in my business as a landscaper, I have a suspicion that tree screams. You can follow that line of thought through to a point where one doesn't do anything.
Yeah, so there is there's quite a lot of misinformation around plant sentience, and I put heavy inverted commas around that, because the way it's reported, often in the media, often by people without an expertise in that field, will say that plants feel pain, that they experience emotions, things like that. That's kind of quite an emotive way of talking about it. When you read those papers and when you go into the research about plants responding to stimuli, which is actually what it is that they're not having any kind of experience of the world. They don't actually have any of the apparatus, like nervous systems or anything like that, which allow animals to have an experience of the world. So they may respond to things in the same way that a bacteria, if you shine light on a particular bacteria, they'll move away or towards it. They don't have any experience of that. They're just responding to what's going on in their environment. The difference is with animals, and well, not all animals, but most animals, they have some kind of internal experience of that sensation, and that they can reflect on that, and that brings them pain or joy or suffering. Whereas plants, because of they don't move, they're sessile, they don't have any kind of evolutionary need to have an experience. They simply do fine without it. And there's no evidence that they actually have these experiential states, which in animals are what sort of give the grounding for a lot of the sort of ethics and philosophy behind sort of with veganism. So I would say to sort of anyone listening, and you especially, that it's good to worry about where does the line end, but when you're thinking specifically about am I causing harm to plants, I think the weight of evidence is don't worry, because they can't experience pain. They may respond to stimuli, but not in a way which we would understand as pain or suffering or joy. So, yeah.
Okay, so when I was a kid, I kind of had this hatred for dairy, especially milk. I just hate milk, and my parents would always tell me, no, you need your milk because you need to get big bones and get strong bones. Is that true?
No, that's absolutely not true. In fact, although dairy contains calcium, it's really not a good source for us at all. Our body can't utilise the calcium in it because it's too acidic, for one thing. And also the balance is wrong. It has a lot of calcium but not much magnesium, and we need to keep that balance right. On top of that, after we're weaned, we stop making rennet, which is the enzyme that we need to digest milk. So we're meant to have our mother's milk until we're weaned, 6 months, whatever. And then at that point we start to decrease the amount of rennet that we make. So then we can't digest milk at all. So in fact, in countries where they don't have much milk, they have very little osteoporosis and very little of anything else disease-wise that involves calcium. So no, that's not right.
From a non-vegan at the moment, okay? So I'd like to know, and sorry if this is a daft question, I'd like to know why it wouldn't be ethical to eat your own eggs that came from your own chickens, who presumably aren't suffering harm because you're looking after them in an ethical way.
Okay, I'll answer that question because I've actually got rescue hens. From a sort of moral sort of standing, is they're not mine to take. Those eggs belong to the hen. Also, because of the way that the hens are genetically bred, they then produce far more eggs than they would have done naturally. And every time they lay an egg, it actually depletes their body of nutrients that they need. So actually, we should be feeding them back to the hens. So for me, it just comes down to a clear boundary that they're not mine, they belong to the hen. And actually, there's nothing in an egg that we really need that we can get from somewhere else. So that, for me, I just see it as a very sort of clear line that they're not mine. So, but I know some people will draw that boundary. It's a little bit different, that they do see it, but all those animals are a product of our exploitation of them. So I think it's very much about saying that I'm not going to continue that exploitation in any way.
If I could just quickly add to that, very much agree with what you've said. Another sort of line of thought with sort of backyard hens is that what you have in a bred chicken, so it's around sort of 8,000 years of domestication to make a chicken, an organism which produces eggs, and that takes such a heavy toll on their body. And what that system is it's a whole history of exploitation and harm done to all those chickens for an immeasurable length of time. And it's kind of a statement when you eat their eggs, and even if they've been rescued and you say, oh, I'll only have one, it's saying that your body and those products of your body are mine to take, and all that suffering that has been done is immaterial because I want to have a fried egg. And you just don't have to, is the simple answer. And I think it very much links to what you were saying, is that you're doing harm when you could choose not to. That's what it boils down to.
Does that help you? Yeah. Okay.
I just wanted to go back to what you said about feeding the eggs back to the chickens.
Yeah.
Like, is that something that happens naturally, or?
Yeah, so sometimes they will naturally just eat their own eggs, but a good way is to sort of scramble them as well and feed them back to them. But yeah, the shells are really good as well for grit, and it's really interesting. I had this conversation once with somebody and they were like, yes, but that's cannibalism. And I was like, no, it's not. And it's just because we've just been so conditioned and so taught that actually those products are for us, that, and actually if you read some of the sites, they say you mustn't encourage your hens to eat their own eggs. And it's like, actually, but we're then taking them from them. So actually that they're theirs, and actually it's very good for them nutritionally wise to consume some of their eggs. So.
Well, my curiosity is how you maybe foresee a future where there's potentially sanctuaries, or what do you see if there's less farms? We want to still have animals as part of the ecosystem. Any thoughts on that, really?
there's some conversations I've had with people, and there is evidence that having animals as part of landscapes, particularly grazing animals, can be good for ecosystems and things like that. And often I think people have a kind of a thing where we're so acculturated to believe that animals need to be eaten in order to exist as part of any kind of human system. And it kind of just doesn't logically make sense. Like, okay, let's accept that animals are good for the environment. You don't need to wait 5 years, they get all fat, and then you shoot them and then eat them. Like, you know, there is sort of a lot of call that we sort of restructure our relationship with animals as sort of co-inhabitors and co-users of spaces that, yeah, they can be really good. They can be good for drainage and things like this and nutrient cycling, but that doesn't necessitate killing them. They can exist on a landscape and, you know, be free to exist and also be helped because they are domesticated. They have needs that require human intervention. That can all be done, but it doesn't necessitate exploiting their bodies for their secretions or their flesh. Yeah, is that kind of in the thread of what you were asking, or just sort of more about sanctuaries at all?
I suppose my thought is, you know, the state is that there's so many farms and there are so many animals and there's so many human beings now. And I don't know where you potentially find that balance. And you know, it'd be nice to see some kind of future. Like, how would you go forward and still have animals? Yeah, without necessarily controlling them. You know, we've got in the way that we do.
Okay. Really, it's like a supply and demand thing. So as more and more people, we're seeing it in stores now. 2 years ago, all you could get was like one kind of soya ice cream. Now they're all eyeline, and there's about 6 or 7 of them, different brands. And there's is it Hagen's? They're going to come out with one soon. So these companies, you know, as more and more of us are saying we're not eating those products, then there will be fewer and fewer animals around to actually have that problem anyway. They won't be bred because there's not the demand for them. So we won't have lots of animal farms, or you know what we're going to do with all the animals if everyone turns vegan overnight. They're not. It's an evolution. We have to be realistic about that. It's going to be an evolutionary process where more and more people do it, and then gradually there'll be less and less animals. So there won't be a need for sanctuaries. There won't be a need for all these things because the demand won't be there for the animal in the first place. Does that?
Just to quickly add as well, is a lot of the the breeds as such that we have now that are used for meat or for eggs have actually been created by us as humans because we want to grow things quicker. And actually, if we look back evolutionary, these animals just existed in the wild before we decided we were going to take them and farm them. So I think, as you said, it's an evolutionary, things will change over time, and actually by not having a need, there won't be as many bred. So, but we've also got to remember these are species, they're breeds that we've created for our own benefit, really, not for theirs. So.
Okay. I want to know about B12.
B12, stand up the nutritionist.
Okay. Yeah, it is in the soil. If you take the viewpoint that a plant-based diet is our natural diet, then it follows that we can get everything that we need from our food. Now, over the years, I've met quite a few people that are B12 deficient in my work. Not one of them has been vegetarian or vegan, not one. They've all been omnivores. So this is not just down to us being vegan. It's everybody is likely to be deficient in these things, and I'm seeing it more in the omnivorous population. So if you're concerned about it, then it's good to get it checked, because you might not need it actually, because you might be eating a lot of mushrooms or a lot of fermented food or a lot of something where, so you're getting enough B12. So yeah, if you're concerned, it's not. Yes. I don't supplement. I've been vegetarian vegan for 30 years and I've never taken B12.
I was vegan for 10 years and I never took supplements. And I survived it. And this was many years ago, and now I'm vegan again. People are telling me I'm going to die.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
would say that get a blood check from the doctors. Sorry. Go get a blood check from the doctors. They'll tell you how your B12 levels are. That's it. If it's low, you can supplement, which is easy, cheap, and efficient. And that's basically it. There's nothing to really worry about. If you've got a deficiency, sort it. If you haven't, don't worry about it. But go regularly. You can get a checkup every year. It often takes a few years for things to show up in the system anyway. So yeah, just go to the doctor, get a blood test, and that's it. If you don't need it, why would you supplement? There's fortified this, fortified that, you know, mushrooms, this, you know, if you're working in a garden, you're going to get dirt under your nails. If it's good soil, you're going to get all the bacteria you need. If you're drinking from a natural spring like I do, then you're going to get, again, vitamin B12. Yeah, it's not as big an issue as they make out, but if you've got a deficiency, it's an issue. Get it sorted like you would anything else. But I think with vegans, vegetarians, and if you're a meat eater, then meat eaters actually come out worse than vegans do, because they're not aware of it. Whereas vegans, as soon as you're vegan, it's B12, B12. So we're aware of it, so we supplement, so we're careful about what we do and don't eat. So because we're aware of it, we're less likely to suffer from it anyway. Even the cattle are suffering from it. They have to be injected with B12 because the soil is just depleted of good nutrients and bacteria.
Hello, I just wondered from a nutritional perspective how you guys feel about the rise of vegan alternatives to meat and dairy products, and whether you feel that they provide less health benefits than having a whole food plant-based diet without the replacements.
Okay, whole food plant-based diet is by far the best way to go, and organic. There's no two ways about it. I think with all the alternatives and stuff like that, it's definitely better than the usual stuff, but it's processed. So if you can avoid processed, which we're not going to do, we all like a bit of rubbish every now and then, but just get as much whole food plant-based in as you possibly can, and you can't go wrong. I tend to work on like a 70-30 basis, where I eat a lot of whole foods, and then I have a bit of rubbish, you know, whether it's chocolate or processed meat, or you know, not processed meat, but processed non-meat meat. So I think I just lost my vegan status there, didn't I? Yeah. Is that any good, or?
Yeah. I mean, I'm in total agreement. We try and do a 100% whole food plant-based diet if we can, and I suppose it's good because it increases the knowledge base of people who aren't vegan. They see stuff, they see alternatives, and they maybe think, "Ooh, I could try that," rather than having a normal product.
They have a place. So if we want someone who is transitioning, then you know they still want their ham sandwich, or they can have a corn ham sandwich, and that's better than having a proper ham sandwich. But then they might stop having that altogether and move away from that onto a more whole food diet. So everything has its place.
Yeah, also, if you're having, I mean, it's usually meat that we're substituting, yeah, or cheeses. So it's animal proteins. So in there you've got saturated fats, which are really bad for you if it's, yeah. Whereas you don't get that if it's a substitute. Okay. So again, it's got to be better. The top, I think it's 14 out of the top 15 diseases that kill us or cause us a lot of illness are all due to saturated fats and animal proteins. So, you know, sugars as well, actually. So, you know, you've got to watch those three: saturated fats, sugars, and animal proteins. So, cut down on the sugars as well. But we're all like a tree.
I would just say that, you know, I'm just a recent vegetarian who has an objective to become a vegan, but that's because of a health issue, totally. And there's such a lot of disinformation and the world, the banking institutions, they, in a lot of cases, investment banks have started to buy food banks and whatever. I don't mean food banks in the you know, like with poverty. I mean they're buying food. Southwest Water is owned by 51% investment banking constitutional shareholders. the capitalists, the real capitalism in the world, are not going to let us go with veganism. It's not going to happen. It's not. There's too much misinformation. There's too much money. There's too many jobs reliant on it, and you've got people like Donald Trump.
Well, I agree with you to an extent, definitely. It's all about money, and whoever controls things, they're going to try and switch it whichever they want. But at the end of the day, where you spend your money changes industry. So wherever you put your pound, yeah, if you put a pound in towards plant-based milks rather than dairy milk, yeah, and everyone does that, they're all going to follow suit and start producing more more alternative milks, yeah. So it's all about us and where we spend our money at the end of the day. So it's just a conscious decision on, do you want to shape the world to be this way, or do you want to shape the world to be that way? And do you let the big guys rule you and dictate what you do? But veganism, at the end of the day, it is growing massively. It's the fastest thing on the planet, and it's because consciousness is waking up, people are changing, and you know, this is 3 times bigger than it was 2 or 3 years ago. So things are changing, you know.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think I agree to an extent with the whole thing of like, oh, if you spend money on vegan food, then there'll be more vegan things. But at the end of the day, the world, you know, I'll put my heart on my sleeve here, I'm quite left. I'm a bit of a communist. And I think as long as capitalism exists, people are going to get exploited as long as food is produced. So people are going to be making, you know, even if we transition to a whole, you know, plant-based agriculture, if, you know, the massive inequalities that come about because global capitalism still exists, you're still going to be causing harm, but this time to people and to massive amounts of people because, you know, the system is still unfair. So I think, you know, that's not a question that can be answered by veganism. Veganism is, on a whole, concerned with how we treat animals, but actually, you know, it's consistent with with thinking about how do we reshape our food system to be more equal, to be more fair, and how do we approach the problem of power in the food system, which means that people are always exploited as part of that. You know, we can do as much as we like for animals, which is great. I'm not saying no one should, and veganism is the way to do that. But you can challenge things elsewhere by challenging the way that food is produced, buying from cooperative sources, buying from local sources, and buying in a way which is consistent with not just vegan ethics, but a way which is more compassionate to everyone. That's what.
Maybe that's the note to finish on. More compassionate to everyone. Big round of applause for the panel!